Welcome to Joidala Fashion Guide. Today's video, we're going to be making a pinafore dress for an 11 years old. If today is your first time in this channel, you are welcome. Please do well to subscribe to my channel. The dress is in 3 parts. We have the pinafore side of the dress, then it's going to have a band, and then the flare part. The flare part is 180 degree. To cut 180 degree flare, we'll be dividing the waist circumference by 3.14. So the total waist circumference, we'll be adding the zipper allowance to the waist measurement. The waist that we are working with is 39 inches. So to 39, I'm going to be adding 3 inches to that. I'm going to be adding 2 inches to that, making 41, and then we'll divide that by 3.14 because we are cutting a 180 degree flare, a half circle. So we'll get the radius first, and when you divide, the radius will be 13.3, and then to that radius you now add the length of flare, and by the time I do that, I'm going to be having 34. So this is 2 yards of fabric, and the length, the yardage is 36 by 45. So I'm going to be cutting the down part of the skirt first. The down part is going to be 21 inches long. Then I just add 1 inch for seam. So to cut a half circle, your fabric will be into 2. Fold your fabric into 2 first, and then fold again like a triangle. So that is how to form a half circle. And then you mark the radius from this corner. This is where you mark the radius from. Make sure that your fabric is laying well. So the radius and the full length and the length of flare, everything amount to 34.3. So from this corner, you mark 34.3. So let's just say 35. Okay, and remember I also have a seam, so it's just enough. So the radius is 13.3. So this is the radius of the waistline. So you can measure and check what you have. Into 2 and then into 4. So that is more than enough. So I'm going to be adding ½ inch. So I'll be adding ½ inch. If I want to cut, I'll cut along here. So this is how to cut a half circle. You mark the radius. Mark the radius that you want. Then mark the length of the flare. You mark length of flare. The length of flare I'm working with is 21 inches. So the next thing is to cut it out. The half length is going to be 15 inches. So before you cut, you can check if your length will be okay. Okay, then now go ahead and cut. So mark your radius, mark the length of flare, then you cut. So this is how to cut a half circle. This is a half. So I'm going to use this paper to create the pattern for the upper part. So like I said earlier, the upper part, we have the half length is in two parts. We have the pinafore side of it, and then we have the band. The half length is going to be 15 inches, and so we'll add 1 inch. Okay, let's say 15 and a half, and then we'll add 1 inch for seam, making 16 and a half. And then we are going to have a 1.5 inches band. So 16 and a half. When you subtract 1.5 from it, 16 and a half, remove 1.5 of band, you are going to have 15. Okay, so the band will be 1.5 inches. Okay, but the upper part will be 15 inches. So you want to fold the block. So let me use this to explain it. You just need to manage the paper. You measure 14 inches. 14. Then you mark the shoulder divided by 2. The shoulder we are working with is 15. 15 divided by 2, that will give us 7.5. So let me use this as my starting line. So, assuming this is the starting line, I'll mark the half of the shoulder divided by 2, which is 7.5. Okay, and then the neckline, the neck width is 3.5. It's going to be a square neckline, so I'll be using 3 inches instead for the neck width, and then the neck depth for the front will be 4 inches. Okay, 4 inches. I'm going to use same thing for the back. So let's say 3.5 by 4 inches, like this. So this is the front neckline. Okay, 3.5 by 4 inches, and then this is the shoulder from here to here, which is 7.5. Because it's a pinafore, we are going to go in on the shoulder by 1 inch. We'll reduce it by 1 inch. Okay, reduce it by 1 inch. Then we'll come to the waistline. The waistline, we are going to use the bust span measurement, half of the bust span. We place half of the bust span measurement like this. Just mark it, and then we connect that line to the shoulder line. There is a new shoulder like this. Okay, then the shoulder slope is 1 inch. Slope it to the neck like this. So when you want to cut, you add seam allowance to the shoulder. You add seam allowance here. Then you add seam allowance to the side here. You add seam allowance to the side, and then you also add ½ inch seam allowance to the down part, and then you cut. So when you are cutting, after you have cut the front, then you can now place it on the back pattern to cut. So it's just the same thing. The only difference is that it's going to have a zipper allowance. So you add a zipper allowance of 1 inch or 1.5 inches. So I just cut it out like this. So this is what you have for the front. Okay, so if you don't want the front, so you go with the width that you want. You don't want it to be too wide. Then when you are marking it, the width, you can use 3 inches or 2.5 inch. Then when you now open it up, you now have like 5 inches or 6 inches. But so when you open this up, you're going to have 6.5. And 6.5 is okay. It's okay for me. So after you have cut out your pattern like this is what you're going to use to cut out your fabric. So you now use this to also cut out the back pattern. The back pattern, we have a zipper extension, and then you decide if you want to use the same square neck. So to cut the half length, we are cutting a length of 14.5. 14.5, and then the block, we are going to be using half of the shoulder measurement as the block. Half of the shoulder measurement, and the shoulder we are working with is 15 inches. Half of 15 is 7.5, and then the length is 14.5. And of course we need ½ inch to join the shoulder, and then we also need ½ inch to join this pinafore to the band. So I'm going to be having 15.5, so that when I'm through it will be 14.5. So I mark 15.5. So this is the front block. So let me cut it out and position the fabric with. So this is 7.5 by 15.5. So you want to mark the neckline. Mark 3 inches as the neckline. So I'm going to leave 1/2 inch seam allowance on top first. So you can use this to also cut out the back pattern to know the block that you are going to use. Okay, so before cutting out the neckline, I'll just mark it, out the shoulder, show you how it looks like, then before we cut it out. So I'm using 3 inches as the neck width, and the depth I'm using 4 inches. 4 inches as the depth. The front neckline is a square, while the back neckline is a high back. Then for this shoulder line, because it's a pinafore, I'm going to go in by 1 inch. So the normal the half of the shoulder, I go in by 1 inch. So then I go down 1 inch for the shoulder slant. So I connect this to the neck. Then I add the seam allowance for the shoulder to join the shoulder. And then I come to the down part. It's a pinafore, so there's no armhole. The armhole is straight. We'll mark half of the bust span measurement. That is nipple to nipple. You mark half of it. And then just connect to this side. Another way you can do it is to mark half of what you have here. Half of what you have here, you mark it down. And then use your long roller to connect it. I hope you can see the chalk mark. So you can add 1/2 inch seam allowance to the side. So the difference between the front and the back pattern is that the back pattern is going to have a zipper. So the back will have a zipper allowance, and then the back neckline will be 1 inch deep. Okay, 1 inch depth for the back neckline. So you just, but the shoulder width, the neck width will be the same. You just mark 1 inch and then you connect like this, like this. That is the difference between the back and the front. Okay, so before you cut, you can use this to trace out to trace the shoulder out. So let me notch. So that when you finish, it's going to be like this for the front. So let's cut out the back. So this is the zipper allowance for the back. Then you go ahead and place the front on it like this. And then just trace it out. So the neck width, the neck lines are different, so that's why I don't want to cut it. The neck width is 3 inches. And then the neck depth for the front, for the back, is 1 inch. You can use your free hand to curve that like this, or use your French curve. So this is the back pattern. You just notch where the zip allowance will be. So we can now cut the front neckline. So this is the front. then this is the back. So you can now go ahead and cut the band. The band is going to be 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches wide. So you can cut the front and the back band separately. Just fold it like this for the front. So for the front, use half of the waistline, add seam allowance to it. It's going to be 1.5 inch band, but we need 1/2 inch to join the upper part. Then we need 1/2 inch, that is, we need 1/2 inch to join the pinafore to this. Then we also need 1/2 inch to join the band to the skirt. So at the end of the day, it's going to be 2.5 inches. It's going to be 2.5. 1/2 inch to join the pinafore, 1/2 inch to join the down parts. So for the front, you fold your fabric into 2 like this. Then you make sure that you have 2.5. So that is when you open it up, it will be 5 inches. So make sure you have 2.5. And then for the back, we are going to cut the back separately. So the front, okay, is a pattern fabric, so I'll cut it such that I'll cut it from here. So half of the waistline, half of the waist circumference is 20. So to be on the safe side, I'll just cut it at 22. You can always trim off the excesses later. So you fold it into 2 like this. Measure that you have 2.5 and then cut. So this is the wrong side. So that is how you are going to cut the back. The only difference is that the back there will be 2. So use this to cut out. Use it to cut out the lining piece. Use this to cut out the lining. This is to cut out the lining.